Oh, you like Transformers? I like Transformers. Small world. Okay, class, today let's get a little bit into Transformers history from a whopping 4 years ago. Now, Power of the Primes was the Transformers toy line of 2018, and with it came this uniform gimmick where all leader class figures included a smaller deluxe sized dude who could combine with their trailer to make them a larger hulking Prime robot. A bit like Power Master Optimus Prime. Actually, exactly like Power Master Optimus Prime. Enough to make you wonder why they didn't just do that? But with it came this ultra updated plastic presentation of the Grand Autobot leader given a fresh new makeover, sticking harder to the classic design than the recent efforts had offered at the time. No more postponing, let's presently power pleasantly with Power of the Primes, Optimus Prime. First we'll be taking a look at the alt mode and... This, my friends, is like 8 kinds of the opposite of good. So focusing on the cab itself, I think if you look directly at the very, very front, it looks almost passable. Sure, the bottom still protrudes outward, overbuffing with stuffing like an upside down muffin, but there's solid silver and suitably sculpted windows, and I like how they bothered to paint the yellow headlights. Also appreciate the little horns on the top, like the G1 toy. The biggest problem with the front of the truck is that it is attached to the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Robots in disguise? Yeah, right. I mean, Jesus Douglas Christ.
Look at this, guys.
Alright, let's see what the damage is here before my eyes fall off. The hinges on the side are big enough to see from space. There's unpainted smokestacks, but then the truck just continues. His arms are just haphazardly thrown in the back, desperately trying to not make things more awkward. The iconic silver stripe is broken up into different heights, and it's filled with extraneous superfluous stuff popping off the posterior. Putting him next to another, more recent figure of this character, it kind of just makes this alt mode look more like it's not done. It looks like a before and after showing where Prime's bad decisions led him. Moving over to the trailer, it doesn't look as bad, but it ain't slick with the classic trailer stripe made of these super cheap looking stickers that almost never look right in any lighting conditions. Plus, they're interrupted by these giant exposed hinges. The top is full of holes for no reason, but at least it's actually the correct shape it's supposed to be. That's something, right? And you can tell they really tried to give this cool sculpted detail with rivets and indentations, but it all gets so broken by the seam lines and the weird hinges. But you see, dear viewer, when this figure was released, it was seen as impressive that this was a modern Optimus Prime that actually came with a trailer, which wasn't something you saw too often back then. But in a post-Earthrise world, I have become spoiled. It's easy to understand why this looks like how it does. This has a gimmick to push, and the truck mode was definitely the bottom priority for the designers. But look, I get the word bad has totally lost all meaning by hack YouTubers insisting that perfectly passable movies are the worst thing in the history of the universe. But let me tell you, this thing is actually bad. I imagine the Nemesis Prime repaint of this is what watching Morbius feels like. I'm reviewing the alt mode first this time, just so my review won't end on such a sour note, which means this mode sucks so much I had to restructure my video making process. I don't like being mean in my videos. Unlike a lot of people who buy toys, I like to have fun. And I get that this thing has other play features to push and unique obligations, but it was $50! It's amazing. This is 100% wrong. I mean, nothing about this is right. I need some CBD after looking at this thing. Transforming the cab section isn't difficult at all, and with a few tweaks, you can turn it into the bright and youthful Orion Pax, who is basically Optimus Prime before he became Optimus Prime. There's your exposition for you. But alright, now we're on to something. This is actually pretty good. Firstly, because of the simple novelty of this being an Orion Pax toy, something we almost never get. But also because the robot mode is actually pretty alright. The articulation is pretty good, and I like how the colors all harmonize here, and the head sculpt is too beautiful. It stays super true to the source material while also being smart enough to omit those creepy robot lips he had. I appreciate the other stylings on display, like the blue transparent mono chest window and the crab claw knees. It all looks very alien. More like Orion 4-packs, am I right? The backpack is a bit awkward to the point of hilarity, but I can forgive it for how much the rest of this bot mode succeeds. Getting to the accessories, he's sporting a huge Prime blaster, which seems a little too big for him. However, I am impressed the joints are strong enough he can still hold this no problem. But you can split these apart to make 2 smaller guns, which is, pretty cool, I guess. As good as this robot mode is, though, I can't help but feel like it's the source of all the problems with his alt mode, though. This is essentially trying to force a Cybertronian-looking robot mode into an Earth vehicle mode, and the final result ends up as good as you'd expect. But with all that said, I am still pleased we even got an Orion Pax toy. Sure, I would have preferred they give him his own figure with a Cybertronian alt mode, especially with that Legacy Elita 1 coming out. But still, this is a satisfying robot mode all the same. As for the trailer, it doesn't really do anything in this mode. However, transforming them both is a simple enough time with no frustrations or hardships on your weary life. And Orion Pax ends up in this very funny looking cube thing, while the trailer turns into the rest of this burly, bulky bat body. And slotting them together gives you this super satisfying clicking noise. And here we are, the main event, Optimus Prime himself. Now this right here looks super cool, easily the best mode of the 3. This just has the unmistakable aura of the character, appearing amazing with the righteous rectangular proportions and solid choices of red and blue on display. It feels and looks big and important. I guess this mode's a little awkward scale-wise. It's probably supposed to scale with all the other Prime Wars Leader class figures I don't have, but looking at this as a self-contained release, it's a big, awesome, massive robot and a radical representation of Optimus Prime. The sculpting is super good, giving off some MP10 vibes, and that head is just amazing, absolutely stellar. It's perfect. The stickers still aren't great though, but in this mode it's a lot less obtrusive and noticeable. Plus, this was the first generation's Prime to include a removable matrix of leadership. Just open up the chest windows, open up the second set of chest windows, and voila! Now this comes with something called a Prime Master, which contains the souls of the ancient gods of the Transformer race, which gives him the eponymous power of the Primes. Like, not really, it's just a piece of plastic. In function, it doesn't do anything. It pretty much entirely relies on you pretending this thing has the souls of dead gods in it. But I like that you can put Hot Rod's face in the Matrix, which gives me a giggle. There are a few things about this mode that are less than ideal, like the backpack made of legs and so much of the figure showing this weird swirly gray plastic. But aside from all that, this mode really is where this figure shines. Like, if you want a great Optimus Prime to go with the rest of your collection, I'd say get the Earthrise one. But if you want a huge Optimus Prime without having to spend masterpiece dollars, I mean, this is a good option. Despite the few shortcomings, this is an astounding robot mode that feels spectacular and looks like a big deal. And this toy was a big deal for like 1 year. You see, this toy was released at the very end of the Prime Wars era, and keep in mind, the previous 2 Optimus Primes were a head-masting triple-changing Octane and a combining Autobot Motormaster. So comparatively, this figure seemed like a somewhat tame and traditional Optimus Prime. And then this toy showed up 1 year later when Siege kicked off, and then Earthrise happened, and now this has been reduced to a very weird relic of its time. That alt mode just feels so phoned in, like someone really wanted to make an Orion Pax toy that turned into Optimus Prime, but they forced in the vehicle mode because they couldn't not do that. If the friggin' Quintessons needed to have an alt mode, you know Prime did too. What I'm saying is, hyping this thing up in 2022 does feel like hyping up the Daredevil movie when the Netflix show already exists. I mean, is this a great figure? No. Is it a good figure that wonderfully presents Optimus Prime in all of his many forms, paying homage to what came before and what is to come? No. But is this a fun toy? Well, yeah. Because that transformation is enjoyable and it's fun to have a toy of Orion Pax, and the final robot mode is remarkable. The thing about Optimus Prime is that there is always going to be another one, and now that we have what feels like the definitive no-nonsense straight-up best modern G1 Prime with Earthrise and Kingdom, I feel like I'm cool with other Prime toys being free to get a little weird. Why not have the Legacy Optimus Prime Why not have the Legacy Optimus Prime be a G2 callback? And even though I feel like the ambitions exceeded the canvas this toy had to work with, I admire it all the same. It's a difficult toy to pin down because the parts of it that are bad are, really bad, but the parts of it that are great are amazing. It's not trying to be everything to everyone. It's not trying to be the end-all be-all Optimus Prime. It's just content to be its weird gimmicky self, and I have to respect that. Plus, I'm glad I got to show it a bit of light this long after its release. So that's all from Optimus Prime and me today, and please do try to behave yourselves.